How many of you have ever noticed that a simple smile can really brighten someone's day? Anybody ever noticed that? A simple smile can brighten someone's day? I know, and it's partially because she's a baby, that whenever my daughter smiles at people, their day seems to get a lot better. There's just something about the power of a baby smiling, or just anybody smiling really, that can brighten someone's day. Or have you ever noticed how laughter can bring a sense of joy, a sense of lightheartedness into any situation? Doesn't matter what you're going through in life, but laughter and joy can really bring a sense of uplifting, of lightness, of joy to the situation. Proverbs 17:22, I'm going to quote this a few times today. Proverbs 17:22 says, "A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit saps a person's strength." You see, in my own life, I have found many, many times that it is essential to my own personal well-being that I have laughter in my life, that I have joy in my life. It's essential for my emotional health, my mental health, my spiritual health, even my physical well-being. It is important that I find times to laugh in life. I have often found that the less I'm laughing typically has a correlation with the more I'm struggling in life. The less I engage with things that make me laugh, that bring me joy, the less I am actually able to live as God intended for me to live. Not only that, but the less I laugh, the less I have to give others, the less I have to pour into other people. The less I laugh, the less like Jesus I get to be. The less like Jesus, the less I reflect him in my everyday life. You see, laughter is a powerful thing. For some reason, we don't talk about laughter in church that often. I don't know if we feel like it's irreverent or something, but we're going to throw that out the window. And because I like to do that with things. And laughter can be just such a powerful, powerful thing. In fact, there are quite a number of health benefits to laughter, just practical health benefits. I don't know if you've ever noticed these or heard of these, but did you know that laughter, it helps reduce stress and anxiety because it releases endorphins. It also, this one was surprising to me, it can boost your immune system. Laughter can boost your immune system. It does this thing called producing antibodies and immune cells. I think I said that right. My nurse wife, did I say that right? She thinks so. Okay, perfect. Thank you. It can also alleviate pain. Laughter can alleviate pain. It also improves heart health. Did you know that? Did you know that laughter can improve heart health? It increases your circulation. It lowers your blood pressure. It just makes you a healthier person in your heart. It also can improve cognitive function. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. This is something I've noticed. When I tend to get stuck on a problem, which can be quite often, because I like to really churn through things, it is often really, really helpful, actually, even though it seems kind of sidelined to like actually solving the problem. If I take time away and actually to like laugh and enjoy it or do something or to exercise, I actually am much better at solving the initial problem than I ever could have if I'd have just kept plowing into it. And so I have learned in my life, I have learned to build into my life things that help me laugh. Things that help me laugh, whether it's TV shows or comedians or dad jokes, which I've been a fan of long since before I was a dad. I'm going to share a few with you today. Why did the picture go to jail? Does anyone know? Because he was framed. Yes. Thank you. I'll be here all week. I've got one more for you. This is one of my favorites. How does the moon cut his hair? Yes. Eclipse it. Yes. Oh, yes. There's groans. I know. But I enjoy dad jokes like the rest of them. What's that? Yes, we can. We can have a dad joke party. I have loved dad jokes for a long time, or TV shows. I got a handful of TV shows that just really make me laugh, that I really enjoy, or some comedians that I like to watch and listen to. So I have learned to build into my life things that help me laugh. I wonder, what do you have in your life that helps you laugh? We all need things in our life that help us laugh. What is something in your life that helps you laugh? Maybe it's a TV show, maybe it's a family member or a friend that you just love spending time with and they just make you laugh. Or maybe it's a coworker or a comedian, or maybe you're like Nick and I and you're a fan of dad jokes. Who knows what it is? What is something in your life that helps you laugh? We all need something. And if you're here today and you don't have something in your life that helps you laugh, I would just strongly encourage you that it is actually good for your spiritual health, for your physical health, for your holistic health, to find something in your life that helps you laugh. You see, we live in a world, you're no stranger to this. We live in a world that's full of stress, full of worry, full of anxiety, full of busy schedules, things that are constantly demanding, taking from us, whether it's jobs or activities or errands or kids or bills or family members, whatever it is. We live in a world that is full of stress and that is constantly making demands of our time and our energy, and pretends to be benevolent and give back to us through material things, but really, at the end of the day, it just robs us of the joy and of the peace and of the spirit of contentment that God has for our lives. And this can leave us, this world of anxiety, of stress, of demanding schedules, can leave us feeling emotionally drained and exhausted. If you've never felt drained or exhausted, raise your hand. Graham, yes, perfect. That makes sense. I can get on board with that. Oh, yes, send help, please. We all have had times in our life where we feel emotionally drained and exhausted. But God desires for us, we see in the scriptures, that God desires for us to experience joy, to experience peace in the midst of all of our circumstances. He wants us to have at our core a joyful heart. He wants us to be people that don't become victims to our culture. Victims to our culture of do more, run harder, run faster, you're not enough. You need to fulfill X, Y, and Z to be worth something. He doesn't want us to be victims of that culture, but rather he wants us to be overcomers in Christ that live out of a spirit and out of a sense of joy. But the reality is that so many times in our life, so many times I feel like joy is one of the most elusive things for American Christians. Don't get me wrong, we love the concept, we love the idea of joy, but when the rubber meets the road, we don't really see how it actually fits in our life. Like when it comes to the scale of our prioritization in life, for some reason joy always gets bumped. Taking time to enjoy life, to have laughter and connection, for some reason our American brains bump that one first and instead insert responsibility, insert demand of our time, insert stress and worry. And maybe you're not like me and you just feel like, all I do is live a life of joy and laughter. Great for you. I could learn from you. That would be wonderful. But I feel like most times American Christians really struggle with this concept of making space for laughter in our lives. And instead, we just live in this churning sea of circumstances that just wave after wave continues to crush us and push us down to the bottom of the sea. And we just kind of get to this point in our life where at times we feel like we're unable to come up for air, and to do so would be wrong. I don't know where we got that concept, but it's not biblical. And I wonder if you're here today and that kind of might sound a lot like your own life. It just feels like this, all you experience is this crashing of the waves, pushing you further and further down, not able to actually come up for air in our lives. Maybe it's because you're facing a difficult situation. Or maybe you're facing a situation that just seems hopeless, or just maybe you got really bad news this week. I don't know what it is. Maybe I heard someone had like a multiple $1,000 car repair this week. That's never fun. Yeah, thank you. Or maybe you've just had a cloud of depression that's just been sitting over your life for days, weeks, months, years. Or maybe last week in January's rough week turned into a rough 3 months. I don't know what it is for you, but I do know that today I have a primary goal. My goal today is to simply encourage you and to point you towards Jesus. That's my goal today. If you get nothing else from today, I just want to encourage you and point you towards Jesus. That we as Christians, we don't have to live a life that is crushed by despair, or not even despair, but just a life that is controlled by cynicism. We do not have to live a life that is controlled by despair or cynicism, but rather we have the opportunity to live out of the strength of the Lord, which can be found in joy. It says this in Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 10. It says, "Do not be dejected or sad, for the joy of the Lord is your strength." I've always found this passage interesting because, at least for me, I would expect it to say something like, "The wisdom of the Lord is your strength," or "the power of the Lord is your strength," or "the omnipotence of the Lord is your strength." But no, it says the joy of the Lord is your strength. And the reality is that we, as followers of Jesus Christ, we can find true strength in our lives from living out of the joy that comes from a life lived with Jesus. If you continue to look at the scriptures beyond Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 10, if you look throughout the scriptures, you'll find all different sorts of places, all different sorts of scriptures where it talks about the importance of living a life that is full of joy, living a life that is full of laughter and enjoyment. I want to read a handful of them for you today. The first one comes from Psalm 16, verse 11, and it says this. It says, "You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasures of living with you forever." Or Romans chapter 15, verse 13, it says this. It says, "I pray that God, the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace, because you trust in him. Then you will overflow with confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit." Another one comes from Luke chapter 6, verse 12. This one's a little bit different. It says, "God blesses you who weep now, for in due time you will laugh." You see, as followers of Christ, we have the powerful gift of being able to have a hope and to have joy in all circumstances of life. And no, That doesn't mean that life is just going to be all sunshine and rainbows. Like that's just not how the world we live in works. I mean, you can even see this if you read the book of Ecclesiastes. It says there's a time for everything. There's a time to weep. There's a time to mourn. There's a time to laugh. There's a time to die. There's a time for everything under the sun. But for those who live in the power of Jesus Christ, we know that weeping, that sorrow, does not last forever. But rather, we in Jesus Christ are given the space, are given the encouragement, are given the time to laugh again. That's what it's talking about here in Luke 6:21, where it says, weeping doesn't last for, God blesses you who weep now, for in due time you will laugh. Maybe you're here today and you haven't laughed in a long time. Or maybe the only laughing you've done is the fake societal laughing when someone tells you a joke that you don't really get and you just kind of laugh with them. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that joke. I have no idea what that meant. You ever done that? Yeah, you have. Yes. Maybe that's the only laughing you've done in your life. When's the last time you laughed so hard that you cried? There's an old movie. When I was a kid, we used to watch this. And my father, he would laugh so hard at this movie. It's called RV. Anybody ever seen that movie? With Robin Williams, the big old rolling turd. Yes. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. It's kind of old, but my father loved that movie. And anytime we would watch that movie, he would laugh. I can't even explain to you how hard he would laugh. So hard that I kind of was like, I'm not sure it's that funny, Dad. like he really enjoyed that movie. And we all need times, we all need spaces, we all need things in our life that help us to laugh. Because in Jesus Christ, in the power of Jesus Christ, we don't have an inheritance of weeping or sorrow, but we have an inheritance of hope and joy for tomorrow. We have an inheritance that says, no matter where you are today, God can transform your life into a life of hope and joy in the days ahead. In fact, our promise of joy and hope is so absolute in Jesus. It's so overall that in James chapter 1, verses 2 and 3, it says this. It says, dear brothers and sisters, when troubles come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. That would not have been my first response. But he says, to consider an opportunity for great joy, for you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. Most of the time when this scripture is quoted, it's telling, pastors are trying to say, hey, be okay that your faith is being tested because your endurance is going to grow and that's going to be great for you. But I want to look at the first part. It says, consider it an opportunity for great joy. How absolute, how imperative to our relationship with Jesus Christ does joy have to be in order for it to be the opportunity we find in the midst of struggles? The hope we have in Jesus, the joy that He has for us is so great, so full, that doesn't matter what we walk through in life, it can be an opportunity to live in joy and laughter. Now, the difficult part, at least for myself, is actually maintaining a heart of joy, a heart of laughter in the midst of difficult times. Maybe life is just the bee's knees for you and you're automatically happy in every situation in life. But in times of trials, it can be easy, at least for me, to allow the circumstances of that situation to dictate my feelings, to dictate my emotions, to dictate my gut reaction. But Proverbs 17:22, as I read earlier, says, a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit saps a person's strength. And when we become so broken in our spirit, when we become so downcast, it becomes very natural and very easy to get overwhelmed and stuck in situations. To feel like we can't figure out where we're supposed to go next or how we're supposed to move forward in a situation. We lose perspective. That's one of the powers of the joy of the Lord. It broadens our perspective. It opens our eyes to see the totality of what God has to see. And as followers of Jesus, we get the opportunity to be vigilant about not letting the enemy beat us down. Jesus tells us to take care of ourselves. And it comes through when in our life, when we prioritize things. Everybody has a prioritization scale, whether you believe it or not. Everyone has a prioritization scale. And in our life, Jesus encourages us to live in things that allow us to live in the fullness of who He is, not things that just fulfill societal expectations. It includes prioritizing things like our health, like our family, our community, our faith. Prioritizing what God thinks of us rather than what so-and-so is going to say next week when they found out we did X, Y, or Z. It's prioritizing how to live for God's will in our life, not the will of our superior who's threatening to do X, Y, or Z if we don't do X, Y, or Z. It's discovering and living out of a purpose that comes from Jesus, not a purpose that some random person gave you in order to manipulate you to their purposes. Jesus encourages us and challenges us to live out of a spirit of joy, a spirit of laughter that allows us to live in the fullness of who He created us to be. And that's part of what laughter does. It allows us, it helps us to live better out of the fullness of who Jesus, of who God created us to be. But there's the pivotal question. How do we actually do that? How does that actually work in our lives? How do we actually become intentional about cultivating and maintaining a joyful heart? A joyful heart, this might sound a little critical, a joyful heart does not make businesses money. And thus we live in a world that doesn't want you to live out of a joyful heart because it doesn't make businesses money. And so how do we learn to cultivate and maintain a joyful heart in a society that wants us to have problems so that we can fill them with their solutions that cost money? Well, there's a few things I just want to share with you quickly. The first and foremost of how we actually cultivate and maintain a joyful heart is to remember that our joy comes from the Lord and from spending time in His presence. It says in Psalm 119, verse 111, "Your decrees are my treasure. They are truly my heart's delight." When we spend time in the presence of God, when we spend time in the Word of God, that allows for a sense of joy that comes only from God Himself to be cultivated in our hearts, to be cultivated in our minds. It helps us prioritize our lives in a way that makes space to have fun, to laugh, to enjoy life. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can't spend money to do that. That's fine. I'm not telling you how to spend your money. But don't allow tactics of suppression and oppression cause you to spend things you don't have to fill you in with something that doesn't actually work. But rather, focus on taking time to spend time with God and allow His supernatural, beyond understanding, joy and peace to transform your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. And that's where a true source of joy comes from in our lives. The second thing is that we must also prioritize doing things in our life that are life-giving. Doing things that are life-giving in our life. I mean, following Jesus is not meant to be this boring, grueling, task-oriented endeavor. That's not what it's about. Like, yeah, he's going to call you to do hard things at times in your life. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's not going to do that. But following Jesus is meant to be a path of enjoyment, a path of life, a path of freedom. It's not intended to be this work of toil so that we can just, make sure God's not ticked off at us. Like, that's not the goal. In fact, actually, if you reference Genesis and how sin caused toil, and then Jesus, restores us, and so he's removing toil from our life, you could do a whole theological discussion on that, but we're not going to do that today. Jesus intends for us to live a life of freedom. But the reality is that we must be vigilant and intentional to have things in our life that we enjoy doing. Your pastor is telling you to have fun in life. That's what I'm telling you. Because it is imperative to your health. It is imperative to your well-being. John 10:10, the abundant life verse, as they call it, says this: the thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. That's what God wants for you. He's not here to kill, destroy, maim, force you into toil. He's here to provide a life that is rich and satisfying. And we have to find times and spaces in our life to find things that we find fun, find things that we can actually enjoy. I mean, take a moment, think about it. When's the last time, and maybe it's been recently, if it has, great, I'm glad, I'm proud of you. When's the last time that you intentionally set aside time to be filled up and encouraged by doing something you enjoy? You don't have to tell me. You don't have to raise your hand. Just think about it. If it was this week, great. That's awesome. Don't quit. If it's been a while, I'd encourage you to make some time and space to do something in your life that you enjoy. Whether it's going for a bike ride, doing some art, scrapbooking, not my thing, maybe yours. Whatever it is, gardening, golfing, I like to call that ball hunting, but, maybe you're into ball hunting. Yes. Whatever it is, find time and space in your life to do something that you enjoy. Third and finally, if we're going to cultivate and maintain a heart and mind of joy and laughter, then we have to be people who spread the joy of Jesus to others. Proverbs 15:30 says, "A cheerful look brings joy to the heart. Good news makes for good health." You see, when we live out of a spirit of joy, when we live out of a spirit of laughter, it can be contagious. Joy is one of those things that can be contagious in our lives in a good way, not in a coronavirus way. And we can bring joy and hope to those around us. You see, as we serve others and we share the good news of Jesus, we can bring healing and restoration to those who are hurting. I mean, here at 317 Church, if you've been around for a while, if not, if you're new, here's what we're about. We talk a ton about sharing your faith and investing in other people to help them experience Jesus. But the reality of the matter is that sharing our faith is not just about sharing factual truth. – Yeah, that's an element, but it is also intended to be for us to a way for us to present and invite those who are far from Jesus to live inside of the joy of Jesus. Sharing your faith is not just an intellectual, factual endeavor. Sharing your faith comes out of who God has created you to be and how God has changed the way you experience life for it to be a journey of joy and peace and abundance, of hope. And yeah, we've talked about it before. There's times in life, there's spaces in life where we struggle. And it's okay to share that too. That's part of the journey because people want you to be real with them. But the thing I want you to understand is that sharing your faith does not just have to be a factual endeavor, but rather it's a sharing of the experience of who Jesus is in your life. Because, and our world needs this. The world needs this so desperately. Also, partially because a lot of people think that to be a Christian means that you just have to be this boring, stuffy person that pretends to know a lot of stuff. But that's not what it means to be a Christian at all, and it couldn't be further from the truth. But when we radiate, when we live out of the joy of Jesus in a way that shares it with others, we, by extension, are inviting them to be a part of and to live inside of the fullness of who Christ is in his joy and laughter. If you've ever seen the TV show The Chosen, which if we ever do a series on that here, that's going to be like the day when the teacher shows a movie, that day, which who knows, we might. But if you go watch the show The Chosen, talks about Jesus and his disciples, it's a great show. There's this scene where Jesus laughs. He just laughs. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and they were just sharing how much that moment spoke to them. How important it was for their spiritual journey to see Jesus laugh, to see him be full of joy. Because so often, we create this just kind of wise man in robes effect of Jesus in our minds. But Jesus, he was a man of joy. He was a man of laughter, of celebration. And when we live out of that, we invite others to live inside of the fullness of Christ. In Psalm 126:2, it says this: "We were filled with laughter, and we sang for joy. And the other nations said, 'What amazing things the Lord has done for them.'" When we live out of a spirit of joy, when we live out of a heart of laughter, people are drawn to the gospel like a moth to a flame. Because people are longing for hope in this world. People are longing for joy. And as the New Testament says, as the Apostle Paul says, we get to be agents of reconciliation, ambassadors for Christ. And a part of that ambassadorship is being an ambassador of joy. And so today, as we close, I just have a prayer for you that you will. This is my prayer, that you will invite and that you will allow the Lord of joy, Jesus, to rest upon your life and to give you something to laugh about this week. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a corny dad joke. Who knows? But to give you something to laugh about. Because we all need to live out of the joy of the Lord. Because we live in a fallen